Hello Year 4 and welcome to part 2 of today's reading session. So today we're going to be focusing on how to summarise this chapter from the book The Explorer So Far. And we're going to use Summarising Sheba to help us because Summarising Sheba helps us to summarise main ideas from more than just one paragraph. So what we need to remember that when we are summarising, we only pick out the main text. The text main ideas. We don't start talking about the bits of fluff and the unimportant ideas that are in there. We only pick out the main big ideas. And that's what we're going to do today. Now, there are different types of questions that Summarising Sheba can ask when someone is trying to check that you understand what you've just read. And these are 3 of the examples that we're going to be looking at today. So you can see the first example is here. And it gives you summaries from different paragraphs from the text or a chapter. And this question is going to ask you to number them from 1 to 6 or maybe 1 to 5, depending on how many statements there are. And it shows the order in which they appear. And they're not in the right order at the moment. So what we need to do as detectives is that we need to find which order that they should be going in. The second type of Summarising Sheba question is a true or false section. So it will give you different statements and you need to read the statements and think, are they true or false? And you tick the right box. And the final question we're going to look at today is when I'm going to ask you a question of which of the following statements would be the most suitable summary, and I won't be giving you an exact page. So I might say which of the following would be a most suitable summary of the page 130. And then I'd give you 4 different examples of summaries and we've got to pick one of them. Okay, so let's have a go at one together. So this is the one that we're going to look at first of all. So which statement is the best summary for the whole of page 130? Now, 130 is not a page that we read today. So we need to make sure that first of all, we are highlighting the key words in the question, as always. So we are looking for the best summary, not just a summary that we think could fit, the best summary that fits the whole of page 130. So not just a summary that sums up maybe 2 lines of the page, a summary for what the whole of page 130 is talking about. So we've got here, Fred's hands were shaking as he opened the pouch. Fred found a leather pouch with objects inside. There were words on the tobacco tin, and Con hugged the tree with a shaking arm. Now, we are not going to get the answer from just reading the answers today. We need to really read the whole of page 130 again to really remind ourselves, well, what is 130 about? Because this is something that we read yesterday. So we're going to read it now, and I want you to be thinking, well, what could the summary be? I think it's leather. Like handbag? No, something else. He edged round her and upwards. He unwound the thing from the tree as quickly as he could. His hands were shaking. And I'm just going to stop there because what are they talking about so far? That's right, they're talking about the leather pouch that they found. Con approached it and sat facing him, hugging the trunk with one shaking arm. Don't open it now, she said. Wait until we're on the ground, you idiot. Just quickly, said Fred. It was a red leather pouch with a leather drawstring and the remnants of gold embossed writing on the base. It was heavy. His hands were shaking as he opened it and pulled out a lump of metal. Again, what are they talking about here? The leather pouch, so that might give you an idea of what the summary could be so far. But we need to read the whole of the page, so I'm going to keep reading. A tobacco tin, he said. It was rusty, but less rusty than the sardine can. Let me see, said Con. There were words on the side. She whispered them aloud as if they were a spell. Collier's finest tobacco, London, Piccadilly. So we know that last bit is all about the tobacco tin. So what is the most of the text about? And we're going to look through all of the answers and decide if either of these things were spoke about multiple times in the text, so it could be classed as a summary. So my first one is Fred's hands were shaking as he opened the pouch. Well, maybe they were shaking as he opened the pouch. We can see here his hands were shaking as he opened the pouch. But is that what happens throughout the whole of the text? No, so it can't be considered a summary. Fred found a leather pouch with objects inside. Well, we can see here that we're talking about the leather object here. We can see that here they're talking about opening the leather object, and here they have opened the red leather pouch. So that has been spoke about in at least 3 paragraphs of the whole summary. So that's definitely looking like my best summary so far, but I'm going to keep reading my answers to make sure that I've definitely chosen the best of the best summary. There were words on the tobacco tin. Well, it only starts to talk about the tobacco tin here, and it only talks about the words here. And that here is basically when the whole of the page 130 is over. So I wouldn't say that summarises the whole of the page, would you? No. So all in all, we're thinking the leather pouch is the best summary so far, but we've still got one to look at, and that's Con hugged the trunk with a shaking arm. We can see here, she hugged the trunk with a shaking arm. Now, she hugged the trunk with a shaking arm. Is that what happened throughout the whole of the page? No, it's not, is it? So which of these statements was the best summary? What summarised the whole of the page the best? Well, Fred found a leather pouch with objects inside. Okay, I've got one more for you here, and I want you to have a go at this one on your own. So I've got some summaries from different paragraphs from this text so far. I want you to number them 1 to 4 in the order that they happen, so chronological order. Number 1 is done for you. So pause the video now and work your way through these, please. 1 to 4, what happened first, then what happened, and then what finally happened. Pause the video and have a go, please. Okay, how did you do? Did you find the order of the events in which order they happened? Fantastic. So we know that Fred made a raft out of wood first. So that was the first thing that happened, the first event. We need to read the others now to think whether they came before or, well, after the raft, he'd made the raft out of wood, and whether or not the other statements are after that too. So Fred found a sardine tin which came from Plymouth. Well, we know that Fred found the sardine tin when he was travelling down the river. So that could be after the raft out of wood, because we know he did this after he made the raft. So that could be a number 2. But I need to read the other 2 statements first. So the next one is, they tied the raft to a branch, which looked too perfect, like someone else had made it perfect. Now we know that they were on the raft at the time that they found the sardine tin. So they must have tied the raft to the branch after they'd been in the river. So we know that statement 3 definitely comes after statement 1. But we need to read this one here to decide which order this one goes in. They got on the raft and began sailing down the river. Well, if we know that statement number 1 was when they were on the river, then they must have got on the raft and began sailing down the river before Fred was even able to find the sardine tin. So I know now that they got on the raft and began sailing down the river after Fred had made the raft out of wood. So that must be number 2. And I've already decided when I was reading down my answers that I thought that Fred found the sardine tin whilst he was in the river, before they tied the raft to a branch. So that would be my number 3. And then I could confidently say that they tied the raft to a branch at the very end of these events, and that would be number 4. And I didn't need the text to help me with this, because I'm using my knowledge of the sequence of events that I know from reading this text. Okay, now your task today, you've got 4 different questions that are going to check whether you can summarise the chapter. The first question is the best summary for the whole of page 137. So you will need to look in your resource pack, find 137 and do what we did at the start of the lesson, where we look through the text and look through our answers. Number 2, which of the following would be a most suitable summary of the whole text, meaning the whole chapter of Monkeys and the Bees. Number 3 is ordering number 1 to 6 to show the order in which they appeared from this whole chapter. So all of this is just about the chapter The Monkeys and the Bees today. So you've got 1 to 6 rather than just 1 to 4. And then finally, using the information that you know from this chapter, The Monkeys and the Bees, can you identify the true statements and the false statements? So that is your task for today. Fantastic listening today, Year 4. So today we have identified the keywords in the question. We have thought really carefully about the order of events that they have happened. We've decided what might be key information and what might be extra information, and when you've done your independent learning, you will be able to answer the true and false statements. So your plenary today, I want you to just have a think of this question now. Based on what you know about summarising a text from today, what 3 pieces of advice would you give to someone who wanted to summarise a chapter? Pause the video now and have a think. I'm sure you had some great advice there. Thank you for listening today and have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye, Year 4.